So the goal for today is we're going to use the first hour like lecture, and then the second one we'll do the checking of the labs. And just I hope this is good. Are we still missing people? We're missing someone, I think, in back. Yeah, the goal is to get I'd like to get a little bit ahead of the game, because I already told you I'm going to be traveling. So if we can get a little bit ahead with the lecturing, then the project section can actually be longer, which I think is actually the most fun section for you guys too. So let's just see how it works. If we can do it, that's great. Okay, so we just finished talking about saving. I don't probably say I'm getting out of the habit of saving myself, so I something I also need to do better with. Just remember, that's the ultimate protection that you have against a machine crash or just something that's undoable. Okay, and there are several operations, ones you will use that are not undoable, even though 95% of the things you do, probably more, will be undoable. Okay, all right. So now we want to actually get into how to use the tool per se. What's it for? It's for creating geometry primarily. That's the main use of it if you're a simulationist or a game developer. Okay. Again, as many people use tools like this for movie/television production as use it for game development. So you will actually see, and this is one of the things, maybe I should have put this more up front, you will actually see references to whole sets of tools and whole alternative ways of doing things, both on the modeling side, setting up the geometry, and also setting up materials that are useless for us. They're good for movies only. Okay? So, that's an annoying fact of life. Okay? But again, well, you realize, especially, I guess it'll maybe self-explanatory for you guys, because I am just going to give you kind of a thin slice through the tool. So that's kind of the main road for you guys. If you stay close to that road, you're probably going to be okay. All right. So, So selecting things. So right. The first thing to talk about when we're going to talk about creating or changing geometry is what geometry? You need a way to say, this is what I want to change, right? That's the selection process. And that this is already, what could be more basic? Surely we'll be done with this in 2 sentences, right? Click it to select it. Yeah, it's not that easy. You know how many vertices and edges could be in a model? You can literally have over 1 million of them sitting on your screen. So you need some sophistication even at that very basic level. And I'm just in terms of selection, I'm still going to only tell you the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more tools that are down there. But we got to start somewhere. So, okay. So you guys remember the thing about the interface being modal, right? The modal interface. This is in object mode. So to get started at all, changing geometry, we got to get out of object mode into edit mode. Click the drop down, or my favorite, just hit the tab key. Okay, you see the display change, the shelf changes. Now we're ready to talk about selecting vertices. Now, a square doesn't have a lot of vertices. It has 8 specifically, but it has some, and that will be enough to get us started. Okay, now, the first thing I want to tell you is when it's orange, it is selected. So when you pop into edit mode with a new object, it starts assuming that you want everything selected, which may or may not be what you want. So your friend is the A key. Hit the A key a few times, and you see what it does is it toggles between all selected and none selected. Okay. You will notice that I am a paranoid hitter of the A key, okay, when I'm modeling. And that is because I've had bad experiences that you guys have yet to have. You may also become paranoid hitters of the A key in the future. The reason why I'm always doing that, you will just see when some flickering going on, I'm hitting the A key. That's what's going on there. Okay, why is he doing that? Because I've had too many bad experiences where I've selected some part of the model. I'm working on a guy's nose, and I'm fixing his nose, and then I'm like, oh, well, I got to go work on the ear. And I go over to the ear, and I forget that I have the nose selected, and I'm grabbing stuff on the ear, and I'm legit fixing it, not realizing that all the stuff I had selected is also getting now really destroyed due to my efforts on the ear. Okay? So this is a common thing. The way to avoid it is just to do that kind of quick toggle. Make sure you start from a clean slate when you're going to start selecting vertices. Okay, now the most basic thing you could do is select a single vertex. That's typically done by the right mouse button. So there you go. You can hit any one of these guys. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, nice and easy, right? Okay, now what about when you need multiple vertices? Okay, so now you can just hold down the Shift key. I can select this vertex, and I can select this vertex. Okay, now what's actually selected now is two vertices, yes, but because it's two vertices and there's an edge in between it, the edge is also selected. Okay, now there are some operations that want edges to do stuff with, some want vertices, some want faces. Okay, here's a face of the cube. Now how can I select the face? Well, you guessed it. Hold down the Shift key, click the other two vertices, and then you see, oh yeah, the whole face gets shaded. It's now selected. Okay, now you want to try that again. Just hit the A key. It all goes away, and you can practice it again. All right. Now, if you directly wanted to go and grab edges, okay, if you hold the Alt key, if you have an Alt key, I don't know what Thomas is supposed to do. If you hold, wait, is it Option? Okay.
I think it is.
Okay. If you hold the, let's hope, the Alt or maybe Option key, if you have Mac OS, we're not sure, okay, and you click on an edge, you can just get the edge in one fell swoop. I mean, what's the big deal, right? You go from 2 clicks to 1 click. Yeah, but when you're selecting 100 of these things, you just went from 200 down to 100 clicks. That's a win. All right? So that's how you do it with the edges. Just hold the Alt key. Another alternative is, let me turn this off, there are modes to selection that you can see down here. These 3 buttons in the middle. This one says, when I click, assume I want a vertex. Now, this one says, when I click, assume I want an edge. And this one says, when I click, assume I want a face. Okay? So if you say, assume I want an edge, and you go up close to a vertex and click it, it says, well, you said you wanted edges, so it grabs the closest edge and selects it. Okay? Likewise with a face. If I select that and come click any, oh, wait a minute. It didn't take the face mode. You see, actually, in face mode, it actually puts a little marker on each one of the faces, too. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Okay, I can grab faces like that. Okay, now let's go back to vertex mode. Okay, now the next thing I want to tell you is, now, let me turn this off. My display may be different from yours. Do you guys see the back corner of the cube when you look at it? You probably don't. Okay, what's the deal with that? Okay, that's this button over here. I forget what this is called, but this allows limit selection to visible. In other words, do you just want to select things that are on the front side of the model, or do you want to be able to select through X-ray vision style to the back? Okay, there's no right answer to that. Both of those are very valuable. And often, in many cases, you definitely do not want one of those things. Okay? So be careful. If you have that button selected, now you can select the back vertex of that cube, the one way back behind, the same as you could select the others. But if you know that's definitely not what you want, see, here's the thing. This is just a cube, right? Imagine this is a human head or something, a tank or something like that. While I'm trying to select vertices up here, there will be a zillion of them back behind. And if you've allowed the ones behind to be selected and you really know you want the ones in front, you're really doing yourself a disservice, right? Because it's just the tiniest bit of inaccuracy, and you'll start selecting stuff in the back of the model, which is not what you want. Okay, so in that case, just turn that off. Okay, now it's impossible to select stuff. Well, you see the one in back is still selected, but now it's impossible to do a fresh select of the stuff that's in back. All right, good. What other stuff can you do? You can also do box selects, right? Good old box selects, like every tool lets you do box, click and drag and say what you want, okay? The way that works in Blender is you use the B key, okay, and that tells you that you're getting ready to start a box select, and now you can click and drag your box, and then everything that's in the box should get selected. Okay? So that's pretty handy. Turn that off. Last but not least, there is a kind of a circle select, which is basically lets you paint the set of vertices that you want. Okay, and I think that's just the C key. Okay, there's the C key. So this little circle is your paint brush. If you just click the left button, you don't need to hold Shift key down. You just kind of paint around over the things that you want, and it just keeps adding them to the set. Okay, if that brush is not the size you want, if it's too clumsy, you can use your mouse wheel to shrink it down. If it's too small and you want to select a lot of stuff at one time, go to town, make it big. Okay? All right, that's the first step to doing modeling is selection. Okay, so now you know the bare minimum. Ooh, I went out of, didn't mean to do that. Yeah, now you know the bare minimum of how do you select things. There are more advanced tools. If you go in, let me see if I can see how quickly I can find things in here. Probably not very. Edge range, short. Okay, see under select here, these are all more advanced tools for selecting things. And I will be honest with you and tell you I don't know what half of these things do. But you can do stuff like if you have multiple, let's say I have a cube and a sphere over here, and they're both parts of the same model, okay? But they're not connected. So you could do stuff, this has been useful to me, go and say linked, Control L is the shortcut, and boom, it will find all the vertices that have any connection to the one that's connected. Advanced stuff like that can sometimes be, that as opposed to finding them all manually can be a huge win. Okay. So, all right, that's enough on that subject. All right, next subject.
Quick question.
Yes, please.
Before it drives me insane, a little crosshair with the red and white ring around it.
Yes.
What on earth does that do?
Can
it move somewhere? Yeah,
if you left click, right? Yeah, so left click in a lot of other tools is the main way of doing things, and here it's just moving that focus point around. I hardly ever use it for stuff. Okay. Sometimes you can put that down and you can use it as a pivot to rotate other things around. It has a bunch of uses actually. That's probably my weakness more than the tool's weakness. If it makes it so important that it's bound right to the main key people expect, it's probably got more uses than I'm aware of. Okay. You could move objects on top of it. You use it to place an object. You put that cursor down in the right location and blast things over. Okay. And, there's a lot of things. Yeah, even I know there's a lot of aspects to it, but I don't use it much. All right. So now let's go back. Let's select a vertex and let's talk about how you actually change things. That's step 2. Now I've selected what I want to change. I don't like that vertex there. This box looks too bland. It's too boring. It's too cubical. We need to do something about that. Okay. So now I've selected that vertex. How do we move it? Okay. A lot of different ways to move it. You could just go and grab these arrows. This is very much reminiscent of what we saw in Unity. Okay, now now you can Control Z undo it. Okay, well, grabbing any one of those arrows will give you a pure translation in that direction. Again, red is X, Y is green, Z is blue. Okay. But actually, the main way I move things usually is with the G for grab key. So when you have that thing selected and you hit G, you can now just kind of move it around where you want. The nice thing about the G for grab is if you change your mind in the middle of this and you're like, that doesn't look as good as I thought, you can just right-click out. It just immediately cancels and saves you the extra step of doing an undo. You can also do the same functionality as the arrows without the fiddly having to grab the arrow precisely, which is what you need to do to actually use the arrow. So if I notice the Y direction there, right? Going off to the side. If I just hit a plain old G, you see it's not going in the Y direction. It's actually moving in the whole plane of the screen. But if I now hit the Y key additionally, you will see it is now pinned to the Y direction. Okay? Now I'm going to if you left click, boom, you will lock it down. If you right click, you will say, that means that's the I change my mind button, the right click button when you're doing a grab. Okay, Control Z will undo it. All right, so that's one basic way. Now let's do something else. Now another thing you might want to do is rotation, right? So Rotation happens less often than you might think, but sometimes it happens. So let's grab this whole front face of the cube. It's hard to come up with something that's even sensible to rotate. All right, so there we go. Now if I hit R is for rotate. So you see it doing that rotation there. Okay, now it's a weird rotation because the axis is determined by the screen. It's rotating and the axis going right into the object from your eye. Okay, that might not be what you want. You see there is an x-axis coming out this way. Again, if I hit X to constrain it, now that's probably more what I had in mind. So it's just kind of just spinning around while staying parallel to the back face of the box. Okay, and you can just use this to, you can make it do, well, let's do less than a half twist. Let's do it like that. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's definitely not so boxy anymore. All right. The third main operation you might want to do is a scale. So in Blender, that's with the S key. So you can hit S, and you can see what this does as you move the mouse in and out. I don't know. Can it do? Let's see if I constrain it to Y. Will it? Oh, it does constrain to Y. Yeah, usually I'm scaling. I want the scaling to be uniform, not just along one direction. But okay, might be good. Okay, let me just do my global scale. All right. Like that. Okay, we're done. Isn't it beautiful? Yes, lovely. Okay, you can rotate around, admire your handiwork. Okay, now that's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's talk about other stuff that we can do. All right, right. So we've talked about how you select stuff, how you change the stuff you've selected. Now let's talk about how you add things to the model. Right? I mean, the vertices have to come from somewhere to begin with. Now, typically in 3D modeling, you almost never start from a blank page and start adding, here's vertex number 1 and here's vertex number 2. You can do that. That is a modeling style. It actually is useful for some things like human faces, for example. Very typically, a human face is modeled by getting a good old photograph of whoever it is you're trying to model. And there is a way, which I will show you before we're done, of kind of pasting it up in the background there, and then, no kidding, going with an empty object and like, okay, let's start move around the outside of the face. There we go, creating the geometry as we go. Okay, that is a style for certain things, but it's pretty rare. Most typically, we want to start out with something. I mean, if it's roughly spherical, we'll start with a ball. If we don't have any other preference, we'll start with a cube, but usually start with something and kind of morph it into the shape that you want. That's most typical. All right. So, okay. So let's just talk about our basic shapes, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill this one. I'm going to hit X, and you see it won't do anything. If you move real quick, you won't even see this. You'll be like, what did he do? Okay, because if you move the mouse away, you won't even see the menu. It immediately disappears. But if you hit X, and you're careful and slow, and then click delete, boom, the object is gone. Now let's talk about adding new objects in. Now you can do this from the add menu at the bottom, but you can also do it by Shift A, and then select and then mesh. Okay. Again, not all of these types of shapes are ones that you can use for 3D simulations. Okay, but the meshes are all good. Okay. So here we go in the meshes. So you got yourself a cube. Could make a circle, but I'm going to skip on that. You can do a UV sphere. So this is like a typical globe with lats and longs on it. Okay. You can do that's a useful one. You can do an icosphere, which comes, of course, right down on top of the other one, okay, like that, but that's more of a uniform sphere. Now, you'll notice that's not so spherical. It looks more like a 20-sided dice, so it's like anybody up for some Dungeons & Dragons action here. Let me get rid of that guy, X, delete. Let's try again. Now again, you got to be real slow. Let's see if I can show you. Right when you create stuff, unless you overwrite it by doing an additional action, and if you look to the left, there usually are useful controls. So in this case, once again, it's inside my other sphere. And then I moved it out and I lose it. Gosh dang it. All right, that's it. And we're going to use use my own nuclear option here. Okay, there we go. I got rid of everything, and now I'm going back to my icosphere. All right, there it is. If you look over here, you see this subdivisions? Okay, it's very transitory. So if you did any action, like me, as soon as you move an object, it's gone. You've lost your chance. But basically, so the model in Blender is, you did a thing, okay, but maybe it wasn't exactly what you wanted. Maybe you want to change some of the parameters. So if you immediately look to the left, there will often be parameters where you can change the nature of that thing, in particular, subdivisions here. So if you click on one of the arrows and say you want more subdivisions, you see it gets more smooth. Yeah? Okay, you can get it as smooth as you want. You can make it so your eye will no longer be able to tell it isn't a perfectly smooth, glossy thing. Okay? Now, while I'm over here, let me just make another comment about this kind of an input box. It's very flexible. You can use the arrows. You can click and then type in it, and then I guess you have to hit enter. Okay? Or you can click and just move your mouse left to right. Look what's going on. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Boom, 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 boom. Cool. All right. Okay. All right. So this is the typical way we get started modeling. You know, if it's roughly spherical, you'd probably be using one of those spheres, square, one of those things. Let's see what other stuff we've got here. Okay. There's multiple shapes. Cylinder, cone, torus, and grid, all of those are useful. Monkey, you probably will be a little surprised at, but that is a thing. I don't know if you covered that. You know, basic shapes in grammar school. You know, the cone, the sphere, the cube, the monkey. Okay, it's just So what this is about is, I don't know. Have you guys noticed? I don't know how much computer graphic literature, vintage computer graphic literature you've seen. Have you seen like a preponderance of teapots in computer graphics images? It's just one of those things. Like in the very early days, it was used as a test object. So everyone had it, and it was just it was just like the easy thing to go and test with because you had it already. And this is kind of the teapot for Blender. Her name is Suzanne, by the way. And it's actually is a Suzanne is a thing. Okay? That's Suzanne. So if you need a little more complicated geometry, just to throw some geometry up, think about Suzanne. Okay, bye, Suzanne. All right. Now let's move on. Okay, so now we're ready to talk about one of the main modeling methods called extruding. So the idea with extruding is that you have a model. Okay, I can start with my icosphere right here, but more typically for extrusion modeling, we start with a cube. So let me start with a cube. Let me start with this just to demonstrate it first. Then maybe I'll switch to a cube. Okay, the idea is that you see that thing is that icosphere is full of faces, right? The idea is we want to be able to grab one of those faces and pull it out of the object, dragging geometry out behind it, more or less like squeezing toothpaste from a tube, okay? You pull it out and it drags geometry behind it, and you do that repeatedly to build up your object. That is a major style. It is a super fast style. I'm not sure, I don't think it's totally freestanding as a 3D model construction style. I think you're going to have to use some of the other techniques. After you're done with your extrusion for refinement, you're probably going to need to use some other techniques. But boy, can it let you blast a model in super fast that already starts to look a lot like what you're going for. Okay? So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go into Tab. Okay, you see everything selected because that's what Blender does. So I'm going to hit A to turn that off. I want to now grab one of the faces. Okay? So let me just grab one of these. I'm holding Shift and I'm right-clicking the vertices. Or you could go into face mode and just grab a face directly if you prefer. Okay? Now let's come around to the side so you can see, you can appreciate the beauty here. Now you just hit the E key. E. Okay, you see an axis there, and now I can just, if you move your mouse, out comes the geometry. Okay? Like so. And you can click it down. You can hit E again. And I'm left-clicking to lock it down each time. E, extrude, move, left-click. E, extrude, move. Okay, you can also, if I'm not mistaken, No, okay, you can't do it in one fell swoop. Often as people are doing this, they will use scaling as well. Okay? So they will come out here, they will lock it down, and while the face is still selected, right, you see that face is still selected, they will hit the S key. You remember what that does, right? Scaling, and they will scale. Extrude, boom, click, S scale. Extrude, click, S scale. All right? So if you go, and you'll see a lot of videos like this where someone's like, oh, let's model a car. And they come up with a box and they pull a little bit long and then they're like, bloop, 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 bloop. This is what they're doing. They're extrusion modeling the basic shape of the car. Okay? It's really fast and quite useful. Okay, so that's extrusion modeling. Okay. All right, so let's talk about adding single vertices. Now, as I say, this is like a separate style of modeling. Now, you notice it's still got my selection there at the end. See, you got to be careful. That's why the paranoid A pressing. So sometimes you do just want to add one vertex at a time. And like I said, for certain things, faces, some people prefer that as their main mode of geometry creation. But let's just say, for our model right here, I don't know, I'm going to add a little flap on this side right here. Don't ask me why I'm doing that. It makes no sense whatsoever, but that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so what you do is you got to be in edit mode. You go in the vicinity where you want the vertex to be, hold control, and you do a left click. And that's it. That vertex is there. Okay, now if I were to stop here, save this model out, and use it for something, that point will be there. It will be there forever. It will constantly be loaded in with the model, and when you put it in your simulation, you will see nothing because it's like a mathematical point. There's nothing to see there. Okay? So just one vertex on its own is not super useful. So let's connect it into the rest of the geometry. Okay, so what you can do is you can collect, I'm right-clicking that vertex, shift, right-clicking the new vertex, okay, and I can hit the F key. F will make a line or a face. F is for face, but it'll make a line or a face. Okay, now I've made a line that connects to that vertex. Again, though, it's exactly the same thing. If I export that into a simulation, you will see nothing because that's a mathematical line. It has no dimensions to it. There's nothing to see. We need to make a face. Bottom line, make faces if you actually want stuff that the user can see and appreciate. So let me go again. I'm going to click the first face, click the second one, click the third one over here, and now hit the F key. And now you see, now it made a face. That's something that you will actually see when the model is exported. Now, the thing about a polygon, a simple triangle like that, as with the plane that we created in Unity, it is one-sided. So that every polygon has a normal associated with it. Are you familiar with the term normal? Right? That means so for any plane, the normal is a unit vector perpendicular to the surface. Yeah, but what perpendicular? If I talk about the normal to the floor, it could be pointing up or it could be pointing straight down, right? Well, the normal in computer graphics tells you which direction you can see the object from. Okay? And when you create that face, now you'll notice when I went around, I selected this vertex and this one and this one. I went counterclockwise. That will give you one direction of normal. Actually, since it's right-hand rule, it's probably the up normal. And you will see that thing from the top, like the way we're seeing it. But when you go from the bottom, there will be nothing there to see. In the simulation, I think in Blender you'll see it. Okay, this is why you can be fooled. Tobias.
Please show again how you created the vertex.
Yes, no, not a problem. We need another wing on the other side. Oh my gosh, maybe you can't see. Oh wow, okay, that vertex was totally not where I thought it was. Let me grab that. G for grab, put it up. Okay, I mean, how's this thing supposed to fly if its wings aren't properly extended? Okay, now we come over on this side here, all right? Control, hold control, first paranoid A pressing. Okay, control, and then I'm going to left click. That's my vertex. Yes? Step one. Okay, step two. Going again, I went counterclockwise last time. I think I better go counterclockwise again this time to be consistent. This one's already selected. I'm holding shift, selected the second one, continue holding shift, selected the third one. Now F to create face, and there you have it. Okay. Now if I come over here, I wonder somewhere in here. Well, I don't want to make it too complicated right now. There is a way to actually visualize where the normals are. Go away. Yeah. Yeah, and I've already let on. There's another shelf on the other side of the window. Have you? Do you see that? There's buttons and menus hidden everywhere in this thing. Okay. All right. So good. Are we okay so far? Okay. So that's it. That's the basic technique. I mean, using that, you could model an entire aircraft carrier and all the people on it. But good luck. It's going to take you a while. Okay. All right. So oh, you know what? I think I blew it. So look at the shading here. This one's normal must be the opposite. Okay, so there's a way to actually flip the normal, but I'm going to leave that for the moment. Okay, but it's pretty clear to me from the difference in shading that I have blown it. If I look from the bottom, same thing. They're opposite in shading. Okay? All right, if we were really making something, I'd take the time and find the flip button, but I don't remember where it is. Yeah?
If I create a surface,
Yeah.
is it possible to divide them?
It is possible. In what way divide them?
Just say, okay, this is a huge triangle, and I
Yeah.
just want to have two.
Yeah.
I can manipulate, edit one of them, one half of them.
Okay. So you mean just to be able to maybe like bend the triangle, something like that. I will show you how this is done. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Next, subdividing. All right. Now you kind of saw subdividing when my icosphere over there was born, because I played with the number of subdivisions. But what I want you to see is that it is a very general sort of trick. So let's actually, what do I want to do? In some way, actually, Barrett, this also answers your question, but this is probably not what you were thinking of, but this is also one of the ways. Sometimes this is the right thing. So for example, let's say, let's look at this right here, okay? I'm going to go and I'm going to select this square. I hope it'll work just based on the selection. I'm not actually 100% sure. Well, this will be an experiment. Okay, so let's say, this is the top of my, flying thingamajigger here. But I forgot that in the middle there should be a raised control panel or something like this. And there's no vertices there to do anything, right? This is basically what you were talking about, right, Barrett? There's no flexibility to do something here because there are no vertices there. How can I get some extra ones? Okay, so let's try this. If you come to the left, what's on the left shelf here, you see there's a subdivide button. Okay, if you click subdivide, you see what happens. Okay, every edge got split, extra vertices got added in, including one in the middle. Now you can click that subdivide button as many times as you want. Now that would actually not be enough to make a raised panel in the middle, but if I click it one more time, okay, now I can do it. Okay, it's actually probably too many, but this is a crude tool. There are other ways of doing it, which we'll see shortly. And now since I feel compelled to stick with my phony story here, I can grab one of these guys and I could extrude him up, right, and say, okay, then there you go. There's my panel. Okay, how hard was that? Right? Okay. Now. Let's do some other stuff. Okay. Right, so this whole slide is really on the same issue. So in internal refinement, what I'm talking about is, again, it's pretty typical that regardless of your modeling technique, the first thing you do is you build a crude version of it. If it's supposed to be a whale, you kind of get the basic shape of the whale, the basic shape of the car, and then you realize if your standards are high, that's not going to be good enough. You're going to need to do a lot of work to put in a lot of details and make small adjustments. Okay? And there's a whole suite of tools to do it, more than I'm going to show you. And in every case, for every slide I have here, this is a tip of an iceberg, okay? But let's talk a little about a couple of the more important ones. Well, especially this one, okay? The loop, cut, and slide, I think, is a mandatory one to know. Knife tool, I think I'm kind of cold on the knife tool now. I may even skip that, okay? Loop, cut, and slide. All right, so let me just show you how loop, cut, and slide works. Okay, you've got to be in edit mode first. Okay, so again, let's say Okay, yeah, so I also forgot that there also needs to be a similar control box on the back portion of my fuselage there, okay? Over here in the middle, okay? Let's use a different technique. Now here, you see, if I don't hit A, I'm going to screw myself. That thing is selected. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Okay, so I think, what did it say there? Control R, I think? Okay, when you hit Control R, you are in loop generation mode. Okay, now don't do anything else. When you just move your mouse around, and you will see it's giving you some options. Actually, maybe not many options. I think it's very confused by my geometry. It has to be something kind of regular where it sees that it can do what's called a loop. So this is the same. This is, again, it's just subdividing. Whereas the subdivide key is good for subdividing one polygon, this actually makes a whole loop around your model. So I can come over here. This is actually not so great for my control box, but I'm going to use it anyway. Okay, and say, okay, I need more internal structure here. I want to subdivide that portion of the fuselage. Okay, so if that's what you want to do, then you do a left click to say that's the right portion. And now you can slide the ring around where you want it. You kind of see what's going to happen. Wherever you left click and lock this down, you're going to create these additional edges and additional vertices. So again, for my control panel, yeah, I don't know, I'd have to do something like that, and then I'd have to do the same thing again. Control R, sliding the thing like this, okay? And then, actually, I need something going the other way. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Let's see. Control R. Oh, yeah, you can. Look, I can go here, and I can lock it down, and I can go this way. Left click and lock it down. Okay, Control R. So what you notice, what I'm learning here myself is kind of go to the perpendicular, an edge that's perpendicular to where you want your ring to go down. Okay, so you say I want to come over here, slide this around, click it down. Okay, and when I'm done, I can do the same thing I did before. Now I can select this this face. I can extrude it up. Boom. Okay, and there's my second control box.
And now I have the small faces around the whole model.
Yes, which is not. For this case, that was silly. Okay. It would be more typical if you have your rectangle as a car and you now need to bump up the middle because you need the roof to come up in the middle. You're building a sedan, so you need the middle to be higher. So this would be perfect for that. You can put those things in and raise the middle up. Okay. So yeah, many different tools, and it's up to you. Often there's no perfect tool either. And also, a lot of times, it's a trade-off between what's easy to do and what's very efficient in terms of not creating any extra vertices or edges that you don't want. Vertices and edges are a cost for a model. It's so important that you see it's showing up at the top. You see over there at the top it says verts 106, faces 136, triangles 206, all of these stats, because when this thing goes into your simulation, this is what you're going to be paying for every frame when you put your model in. So, in some circumstances, you will find you need to be quite careful with this. And, for this class, probably you can not be so careful, but maybe, when come to the project, if you decide that this model you have now, you need 100 or 200 of them in the scene, okay, and you were not careful about the number of triangles and you went to a ridiculous number, you might regret it. What will happen is your application will become very sluggish, the frame update rate will be very slow, it will chug, it will give you this horrible user experience when you're inside of it. You will feel like you're lurching when you're moving through the world. It will basically be pretty unsatisfying, okay? So that's what that's about. All right, what other stuff to say here? Okay, good. So other modeling tools, subdivision surfaces, what could that be? Okay, so this one, hold on to your seats now, because this one is a little bit weird, but it's certainly powerful, and it's super great. And not so much for modeling something that's supposed to be some kind of a mechanical device, as I take this to be, but for something like a human finger or your whale or whatever, this is an awesome tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let me see, I think I have to be in object mode to get started with this. Okay, you have to be in object mode. Now you come over to here, and you see there's this what looks like one pane to you up to this point, now realize is a million different panes. These are all sub-versions of that pane, and they all have their importance. Okay? I want you to find the one that has a little wrench there, and click on the wrench. And it says Add Modifier. Okay, we want to add a modifier. And I want you to look down through the list for Subdivision Surface. There it is right there. Okay. Now when you click this, be prepared to be blown away. Okay, your shape immediately morphs on the left-hand side. Okay, a subdivision surface is a technique for building smooth-ish shapes. It's a technique for building shapes that have a lot of polygons in them, okay, but where you have a kind of a coarse control structure called a cage around those polygons that kind of says the way the actual polygons in the model should behave. Okay, so let me just show you the issue with smoothness. Okay, so first of all, you see that it's now not the polygons that I originally had. If you come over to either View or Render, I would recommend View, and you bump up View. Now watch what happens to my model as I bump this up. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, look at that. Okay, that's quite a change. All right? Now, isn't it great to be able to very quickly model something as smooth and sleek as that, starting from something very coarse like I built? Now, the part that's not so great, you see up at the top how many vertices and faces are in the model. It was 100-something when last we checked. Now it's over 100,000. Okay? So we changed from 10 to the second up to 10 to the fifth complexity. Okay, this is going to cost a lot of time, but this might be an important thing for me. And 100,000, these days, I won't be able to have 100 of these things in my scene, but I could have 1, 2, 3. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, every year it gets better because your GPUs and even in a laptop is getting more powerful. All right, now. But I want you to understand conceptually what this thing really is. Now, if you come over on this left side, watch this. Now, you're still holding on to your seat, right? And you hit Tab to go into edit mode, you see that what I'm editing is not the polygons that were shown. It's my original polygons. They're still there. This is what I mean. When you add a subdivision surface modifier, what you're saying to Blender is, hey, I want you to take that geometry that I have. Don't interpret it as literal geometry anymore. Interpret it as a rough cage, and I want you to build a smooth shape that more or less tracks my cage but stays inside of it. Okay? That's the notion. Now you can still come in here. You can still come in here and edit this cage at any time. So watch what happens if I come over here and grab this vertex, hit G, and pull it up. Look at that. Okay? All right. So it's an awesome tool, but that's way too many polygons. So let me actually back off quite a bit in terms of the smoothness here. Okay, that's maybe better. What am I at? I'm at what is it saying, Bert's? Is that 1,100? I'm not really sure how to. Oh, I get it because I'm in edit mode, so it doesn't actually know yet. Okay, 8,000 vertices. I'll live with 8,000 vertices. Okay, let me pop out here. All right, now at a certain point, okay, if we were movie makers making movies, we could literally take a subdivision surface model and directly render it in our scene. Okay, we're not movie makers, and we're not quite to the era where we can put this right into a simulation. We will get there. It won't be very long. Okay? Every year we're closer, but we're not there yet. So in order to actually use it for anything, we need to apply the modifier. And what's going to happen now is that cage is going to go away. It's going to be destroyed forever. This is a great example of something you will not be able to undo. Once you say apply, that's it forever. So if you're not sure, this would be where you'd save your model beforehand. But I'm reckless, and it's the end of the hour. So I'm just going to go and click apply. All right? So now you see if I go into edit mode, all those vertices are there. Okay. Now this gives us a chance to talk about how we deal with this. because the models you are downloading, or even ones you create yourself, may have a zillion vertices like this. Now, how do we actually go and deal with them? Let's say at this late date, you remember that little bump I was putting on the back there? I wasn't sure. I kind of wanted it. I didn't want it. I kind of wanted it. I didn't want it. I decided I didn't want it. Now I realize, no, I absolutely need it. I've got to go put it in. Now, what can I do? I can go over and grab a vertex and pull it out. Look, you see, it's not quite doing the same thing. Do you want to grab each one of those things and try to build that smooth mountain that I had before? Okay, that's going to be really, really painful. It is possible. It is, in fact, you can all do it, but it will take you an hour, okay? And it's not a way you want to spend an hour. Okay, there are some tools, though, that will help you. There's at least a couple different modes. The easy one is called proportional editing. So with proportional editing, when you go and move a vertex, it also automatically assumes that you want to move his neighbors as well to keep a smooth shape. Okay, so what you do is, is it O? If I come over here, if I hit O, you will see things change on the bottom. Okay, and now I'm in proportional editing mode. Okay, now let me show you how this works. Let me shift middle button to get it in the middle here. All right. Okay, now if I just hit G and move, okay, you will see now it's actually deforming more continuously. Okay, now you see that ring? That's controlled by your mouse wheel. That's what determines how many of the neighbors actually move. So if you want it to be a little pimple, you can make it smaller. If you want it to kind of be I really want it to keep it quite smooth, you can make it a little bigger. Okay? And you can move that thing and then left click if you want to lock it down. Now I'm not going to lock it down because I decided that actually that's the wrong shape for the bump I want on that thing. So I just want to show you that if you go over here, this controls the shape. So if you come in here, you can make it be now not just any arbitrary shape, unfortunately, but you can make it be, if you want a sharp shape, I can do this. I can click the sharp shape, I can grab it, and now when I pull this up, look at that. Okay? Again, it is smooth on the sides, but it gives me a nice sharp peak instead of a big rounded peak. All right? Okay, so that gives you maybe some sense of how you can deal with that. Now, there are other ways to deal with it. Let me just show you the other main way really briefly, and then I will stop and we will take a break, and we'll reconvene at the top of the hour to check where you are with Rollerball. Okay? There is a whole sculpting mode. So if you guys have seen, if you're fans at all of really high-end computer graphics, either for Hollywood or for computer games, and you've seen the models that a good artist cranks out, like a character model, often they render them in pure white, like they're a statue made out of alabaster or something. It is unbelievable. I mean, it's down to the pores on the skin, and the scars are real 3D geometry. So you may be wondering how the heck, with tools like this, you actually would achieve that. Well, there's a whole, often the answer is, there's a whole other way to do stuff like that. There's a whole set of sculpting tools which are common. Now, I don't know if blenders are really up to snuff. I'm not a sculptor myself, so this doesn't help me so much. But if you got some sculpting chops, you might take a look at this. If you go here out of edit mode into sculpt mode, okay? So the way sculpt mode works, roughly speaking, is you now are kind of it treats the model like clay, and you're either like pulling at the clay to kind of pulling it out, or you're pressing it in. And I think it can do a lot more than that because it used to be able to do more. I can't find the interface for it anymore. Okay, but you see this? It says add here, so I think this is going to pull out. So as you stroke the surface, you see what's happening? It's bulging out. If I click over to subtract and stroke the surface, it pushes back in. Okay, again, you can. There's a lot of controls here. You can control how big your the region is. You can control how much it moves. If you're interested in that at all, then I would encourage you to go look in the manual or look online. This is really a thing for very high-end artwork, but I don't know how to use it.
When I do this, it's doing that on both sides of the model.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Like that A button.
In mirror mode.
Yeah. Oh, well, mirror mode will do that. Yeah. So that's you can turn mirror mode off if you don't want that. it is possible to turn it off. Yeah. So that's again another detail that goes beyond where I'm taking you. But there are, like, if you know you want the left side of the face to look identical to the right side of the face, you can enforce that. There are ways to tell Blender always keep it that way, and when you fiddle with the right side of the face, it will do the same thing to the left, and so forth. Just another one of the thousands of things I'm not telling you about Blender. Okay, and now for my big finale, I'm going to turn off the recording.